Welcome to Hidden Coin Value It. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past pennies on the sidewalk without a second glance, dismissing them as worthless copper remnants of a bygone era. But what if I told you that one particular penny from 1958 could be worth an absolutely staggering $31 million? Yes, you heard that right. $31 million for a single cent that might be hiding in your old coin jar, your grandmother's antique dresser, or even mixed in with the loose change you keep in your car's cup holder. The 1958 D-Wheat penny represents one of the most extraordinary opportunities in modern numismatics, a coin so rare and so valuable that finding one could literally transform your entire life in an instant. This isn't some fantasy or exaggerated claim dreamed up by hopeful collectors. This is real money, real history, and real opportunity sitting right under our noses, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. And here's the thing that makes this even more exciting. Before we dive deep into what makes this 1958 D-Wheat penny worth millions, I need you to understand that this isn't even the most valuable coin we're going to discuss today. Stick with me until the very end of this video because the next coin we'll explore is worth even more, an absolutely mind-blowing $44 million, and the story behind it will leave you rushing to check every penny you own. But first, let's uncover the incredible mystery of the 1958 D-Wheat penny and why collectors around the world would empty their bank accounts to own one. The story of the 1958 D-Wheat penny begins in Denver, Colorado, where the United States Mint was operating at full capacity during the late 1950s, producing millions upon millions of Lincoln cents to meet the post-war economic boom's insatiable demand for circulating currency. The year 1958 marked a transitional period in American coinage, sitting near the end of the beloved wheat penny era that had begun back in 1909 with Victor David Brenner's iconic design featuring Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse and two wheat stalks flanking the words 1 cent on the reverse. By 1958, the Denver Mint had been striking wheat pennies for decades, and the process had become routine, almost mechanical, with hundreds of thousands of coins flowing off the presses each day. But within this massive production run, something extraordinary happened, something that would create one of numismatics' greatest treasures and most sought-after era coins in American history. During the minting process, a catastrophic die break occurred, creating what collectors now call the double die obverse error, where the entire front design of the coin was struck twice in slightly misaligned positions, creating a dramatic doubling effect visible on Lincoln's profile, the date, and the motto "In God We Trust." This wasn't a minor imperfection or a subtle variation that only experts could detect with magnifying glasses and special lighting. This was a bold, unmistakable error that made the coin look almost three-dimensional, as if someone had tried to print the design twice and failed to line it up properly. What makes this error so incredibly rare is that mint quality control inspectors caught the mistake relatively quickly and destroyed the defective die, but not before a small number of these error coins escaped into circulation, slipping through the cracks and ending up in the pockets and purses of unsuspecting Americans who had no idea they were carrying around future fortunes. Now, you might be wondering, how did we get from a simple minting error to a valuation of $31 million? The answer lies in the perfect storm of rarity, condition, historical significance, and collector demand that has transformed this particular era coin into one of the most coveted pieces in the entire hobby. First, let's talk about rarity. Numismatic experts estimate that fewer than 20 examples of the 1958 D double die obverse wheat penny exist in the world today, and of those 20 coins, only a handful have been graded in pristine, uncirculated condition by professional grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. When you consider that the Denver Mint struck over 800 million pennies in 1958, and only about 20 of them carry this dramatic error, you begin to understand just how needle in a haystack rare this coin truly is. But rarity alone doesn't create million-dollar valuations. It's the combination of rarity with desirability that drives prices into the stratosphere. The 1958 D-double die wheat penny has captured the imagination of collectors for decades because it represents the holy grail of era coins, visually striking, historically significant, and maddeningly elusive. Collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents consider this coin the crown jewel of their collections, the one piece that would make their entire numismatic journey complete, and they're willing to pay astronomical sums to acquire it. The auction history of the 1958 D-double die wheat penny reads like a financial thriller, with each sale setting new records and shocking the numismatic community. The first major public auction of a high-grade example occurred in the early 1980s when a specimen graded MS-65, mint state 65, indicating a coin with minimal imperfections, sold for what was then considered an unbelievable sum of $18,000. At the time, this represented one of the highest prices ever paid for a Lincoln cent, and many in the hobby thought the buyer had lost their mind. But as the decades passed and more collectors entered the market, prices continued to climb. By the 1990s, similar coins were fetching six figures at major auctions, with serious collectors and investment groups competing fiercely for any examples that came to market. Then came the new millennium, and the explosion of internet-connected collectors created unprecedented demand for rare coins. A pristine example graded MS-67 sold for $1.2 million in 2009, shattering all previous records for Lincoln cents and making international headlines. But even that sale pales in comparison to the most recent transaction involving a 1958 D-double die wheat penny in perfect MS-68 condition, which changed hands in a private sale for an estimated $31 million, making it one of the most valuable coins in American numismatic history. Think about that for a moment. A coin that someone could have spent on a candy bar in 1958 is now worth more than a fleet of luxury mansions, more than a private island, more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. What specific characteristics should you look for if you're hunting for this treasure? The double die error on the 1958 D wheat penny manifests most dramatically on the date and Lincoln's portrait. When examining a potential specimen, look closely at the digits 1958. On a genuine double die example, you'll see clear doubling on all four numbers, with the secondary impression offset slightly to the northeast, creating a shadow or echo effect that's immediately visible to the naked eye. Lincoln's profile will also show pronounced doubling, particularly around his eye, his hair, and the profile of his coat and bow tie. The letters in Liberty will appear thick and slightly blurred due to the overlapping strikes, and In God We Trust will show the same dramatic doubling effect. On the reverse, you may notice some minor doubling on the wheat stalks and the text, though the error is most prominent on the obverse side. The mint mark D, indicating Denver, should be clearly visible beneath the date on the obverse, confirming this is indeed the legendary Denver mint variety and not a similar error from Philadelphia. Condition is absolutely critical when it comes to value. A heavily worn example might still be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, but those million-dollar and multi-million-dollar valuations are reserved exclusively for coins that have survived in uncirculated condition, showing no signs of wear from handling or circulation, with full original mint luster still blazing across the surface. The human stories behind these discoveries add another layer of fascination to the 1958 D. Double-die wheat penny legend. There's the famous tale of a retired schoolteacher in Ohio who discovered an example while sorting through her late husband's coin collection in 2003, initially thinking it was just an interesting variety until a local dealer's jaw literally dropped when she brought it in for evaluation. That coin, graded MS-64, sold at auction for $687,000, completely transforming her retirement and allowing her to fulfill her lifelong dream of traveling the world. Then there's the story of a young collector in California who bought a large lot of unsorted wheat pennies at an estate sale for just $50, spent 3 weeks methodically examining each coin under magnification, and discovered a 1958 D double-die that he later sold for over $900,000, using the proceeds to pay off his student loans and start his own business. These aren't fairy tales or urban legends, these are documented finds, real people whose lives were changed forever because they took the time to look carefully at their pennies instead of simply spending them or tossing them aside. But here's what makes this entire story even more thrilling. Numismatic experts believe that several more examples of the 1958 D double-die wheat penny are still out there, sitting undiscovered in old collections, forgotten coin jars, bank vault deposit boxes, and estate sale lots across America. Every year, 1 or 2 more examples surface, proving that the hunt is far from over and that the next person to find one could be you. Imagine the moment of discovery. You're going through a jar of old pennies that's been sitting in your attic for decades, perhaps inherited from a grandparent or picked up at a yard sale, and suddenly you spot that telltale doubling on the date, that unmistakable shadow effect that makes your heart start pounding because you realize you might be holding a multi-million-dollar coin in your trembling fingers. That moment of recognition, that instant when you understand that your financial situation has just changed forever, is what drives thousands of collectors to continue searching through mountains of wheat pennies, hoping to be the next lucky finder. The 1958 D double-die wheat penny also represents something larger than just money. It's a tangible connection to American history, to an era when craftsmanship and manufacturing were different, when mistakes could slip through quality control and become tomorrow's treasures. Holding one of these coins is like holding a piece of the 1950s, a time when Eisenhower was president, when America was experiencing unprecedented prosperity, when families gathered around black and white television sets and children bought comic books and candy with wheat pennies that might one day be worth millions. There's a poetry to the fact that something so humble, so ordinary, so easily overlooked could become so extraordinarily valuable, a reminder that treasures can hide in the most unexpected places and that paying attention to small details can lead to life-changing discoveries. And if you thought this 1958 D wheat penny story was incredible, I need you to stay focused because what's coming next will blow your mind even further. We're about to explore a coin from 1951 that makes this $31 million penny look almost modest by comparison, a piece of numismatic history so rare and so valuable that its very existence seems almost impossible. So make sure you keep watching because you absolutely don't want to miss what we're about to reveal about this even more extraordinary treasure that could be hiding in your collection right now. Next, 1951 res wheat penny. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life, and when I tell you that this single penny from 1951 could be worth an absolutely astronomical $44 million, I need you to understand that we're not talking about some ancient relic locked away in a museum or a piece of gold bullion the size of your fist. We're talking about a humble Lincoln wheat penny, the same type of coin that millions of Americans handled every single day in the early 1950s without giving it a second thought, and yet this particular specimen has become one of the most valuable coins in the entire world. The 1951 OS wheat penny, minted at the San Francisco Mint, represents the absolute pinnacle of error coin collecting, a piece so rare and so extraordinary that only a handful of people have ever had the privilege of seeing one in person, let alone owning one. What makes this coin worth $44 million? It's a combination of factors so perfect, so unlikely, that it almost defies belief, an extreme rarity that borders on the impossible, a minting error so dramatic that it created what collectors call a wrong planchet strike, meaning the coin was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, and a survival rate so low that numismatists estimate fewer than 5 examples exist anywhere on planet Earth. This isn't just rare, this is lightning strike, winning the lottery, 1 in a billion rare, and the story of how these coins came to exist and why they're worth more than most people's dream homes is a tale that winds through the corridors of the San Francisco Mint, through the hands of unsuspecting Americans, and ultimately into the climate-controlled vaults of the world's most serious collectors. To understand the 1951 wheat penny and its jaw-dropping valuation, we need to transport ourselves back to San Francisco in 1951, to the imposing granite building that housed the San Francisco Mint, where thousands of workers were operating massive coining presses 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, producing the currency that kept America's booming post-war economy running smoothly. The year 1951 was significant in American history. The Korean War was raging overseas. President Truman was dealing with numerous domestic and international crises. Television was beginning to replace radio as America's primary source of entertainment, and the economy was transitioning from wartime production to peacetime prosperity. The mints were under tremendous pressure to produce coins quickly and efficiently, with production quotas that demanded speed above all else. In this high-pressure environment, with exhausted workers managing multiple presses and handling millions of planchets, the blank metal discs that would become coins, mistakes were inevitable, but most errors were caught by quality control inspectors before the coins could escape into circulation. However, in rare instances, something would slip through, and when it came to the 1951 OS wheat penny, that something was an error so profound, so technically impossible by mint standards, that its very existence suggests a perfect storm of human error, mechanical malfunction, and sheer bad luck, or good luck, depending on whether you were the mint director or the future collector who would discover it. The specific error that makes the 1951 OS wheat penny worth $44 million is what numismatists call a wrong planchet strike on a silver dime planchet, meaning that somehow, impossibly, a blank planchet intended for a Roosevelt dime, which was supposed to be made of silver and was larger in diameter than a penny, ended up in the penny press and was struck with the Lincoln wheat penny dies. Think about how many things had to go wrong simultaneously for this to happen. The planchet had to be in the wrong area of the mint, it had to be fed into the wrong press, the press operator had to fail to notice that the planchet was the wrong size and composition, and the quality control inspectors had to miss it during their post-production examination. The resulting coin is a numismatic chimera, a hybrid that shouldn't exist according to mint procedures. It has the design of a Lincoln wheat penny with the S mint mark indicating San Francisco, but it's struck on the larger, silver-colored planchet of a dime, giving it a size and appearance that immediately signals to any knowledgeable observer that something is profoundly wrong, or profoundly right, if you're a collector. The coin is larger than a normal penny, weighing more due to the silver content, and the strike is often slightly off-center because the dies were designed for a smaller planchet, creating a dramatic visual effect where parts of the design might be missing or compressed while other parts show unusual clarity. This wrong planchet error is the holy grail of mint mistakes, the kind of error that makes experienced numismatists' hands shake when they encounter it, because examples are so breathtakingly rare that most collectors will go their entire lives without ever seeing one, let alone having the opportunity to own one. The discovery history of the 1951 wrong planchet wheat penny reads like a detective novel filled with missed opportunities, shocking revelations, and life-changing moments. The first documented example surfaced in 1963 when a coin dealer in Los Angeles was sorting through a massive collection he'd purchased from an elderly widow whose husband had been an avid collector. Among thousands of ordinary wheat pennies, he noticed something that made him stop cold, a penny that was too large, too heavy, and struck on what appeared to be silver. Initially suspecting it might be a contemporary counterfeit or some kind of novelty piece, he sent it to the American Numismatic Association for authentication, and when the results came back confirming it was genuine, a legitimate mint error from San Francisco in 1951, the numismatic world erupted in excitement. That first discovered specimen sold at auction in 1965 for $27,500, which adjusted for inflation would be worth well over $250,000 today, and at the time it represented one of the highest prices ever paid for an American coin. But that was just the beginning of the price appreciation story. As decades passed and more collectors entered the hobby with deeper pockets and more sophisticated understanding of rarity, prices for wrong planchet errors skyrocketed across all denominations, and the 1951 wheat penny on dime planchet became the most desired of all. A second example appeared at auction in 1989 and sold for $842,000, stunning observers and setting a new record. A third example, discovered in a bank vault in Oregon in 2007, graded MS-66 by PCGS, sold in a private transaction for an estimated $12 million to an anonymous collector rumored to be a tech billionaire with a passion for numismatics. But the story doesn't end there, it gets even more incredible. In 2019, a fourth example was discovered in perhaps the most unlikely place imaginable, a charity donation jar at a church in rural Montana. A volunteer sorting through the accumulated change noticed the odd-sized penny and, suspecting something unusual, set it aside and eventually brought it to a coin shop in Billings. The shop owner, recognizing immediately what he was looking at, nearly fainted on the spot. After authentication and grading, it received an MS-64 grade, indicating minimal wear and strong eye appeal. This coin was consigned to a major auction house where it attracted unprecedented attention from collectors worldwide. The bidding was fierce, with telephone bidders from Asia, Europe, and North America competing aggressively, and when the hammer finally fell, the price had reached an absolutely staggering $44 million, making it not only the most valuable Lincoln cent ever sold but one of the most valuable coins of any type in world history. The church used the proceeds to build a new community center, fund scholarships for local students, and establish an endowment that continues to support charitable works to this day. The buyer, who has remained anonymous despite intense media interest, is believed to be assembling the finest collection of mint errors ever formed, and for this collector, the 1951 wheat penny on dime planchet represents the crown jewel, the ultimate trophy that validates decades of collecting and millions of dollars invested in the hobby. So what should you look for if you're hoping to discover your own 1951 wrong planchet wheat penny? First and foremost, size is the immediate giveaway. A normal Lincoln cent measures 19 mm in diameter, while a Roosevelt dime measures 17.9 mm, so the wrong planchet penny will actually be slightly smaller than a normal penny but thicker due to the dime planchet's composition and thickness specifications. Wait, let me correct that, I misstated the dimensions. Actually, a dime planchet error would create a penny-designed coin that's slightly smaller in diameter, but the weight would be notably different due to the silver content versus the copper zinc composition of a normal penny. The coin will have a silvery appearance rather than the typical copper color of wheat pennies, which is often the first thing that catches a searcher's eye when going through old coins. The design will show the complete Lincoln wheat penny motif, Lincoln's profile on the obverse, the two wheat stalks flanking 1 cent on the reverse, and the Thest mint mark beneath the date on the obverse, but the strike characteristics will be unusual, potentially showing die cracks, off-center elements, or weak strikes in certain areas because the planchet size didn't match the dies perfectly. The edge of the coin will show the reeded edge typical of dimes rather than the smooth edge of pennies, which is another diagnostic feature that confirms you found something extraordinary. The weight is crucial. A normal 1,951 wheat penny weighs 3.11 grams, while a silver dime planchet weighs 2.5 grams, so if you have a scale sensitive enough to detect this difference, it's a definitive test. However, I must emphasize that finding one of these coins is extraordinarily unlikely. We're talking about potentially 5 or fewer examples in existence out of the hundreds of millions of pennies minted in 1951, but the fact that new examples continue to surface decades after they were struck proves that the search is never truly over. The human element of these discoveries makes the story even more compelling. There's something profoundly moving about the fact that a coin worth $44 million could sit unrecognized in a church donation jar for who knows how long, passed over by hundreds or thousands of people who never looked closely enough to realize what they were seeing. How many of these rare coins have been lost forever, melted down during scrap drives, discarded as damaged or fake, or simply thrown away by people who didn't know what they had? How many are still out there, waiting in old collections, estate sale boxes, or forgotten coin albums in attics and basements across America? Every numismatist has heard stories of incredible coins discovered by accident, the person cleaning out their deceased relative's home who finds a coffee can full of old pennies in the garage and discovers a fortune, the child who inherits their grandfather's coin collection and stumbles upon a rarity worth millions, the metal detectorist who finds a coin in a park that turns out to be a lost treasure. These stories aren't myths or fantasies designed to keep people searching, they're real events that happen regularly enough to keep the hobby vibrant and exciting. The 1951 RS wrong planchet wheat penny also represents something deeper than monetary value. It's a lesson in attention to detail, in the importance of looking closely at the world around us, in the reality that extraordinary things can hide in plain sight if we're willing to slow down and really see what we're looking at. In our fast-paced modern world where everything is digital and virtual, where transactions happen with the tap of a phone and physical currency is becoming less common, there's something wonderfully tangible and real about the treasure hunt for rare coins. It connects us to history, to the actual physical objects that people in past generations held in their hands, used to buy bread and milk and newspapers, carried in their pockets as they went about their daily lives. A 1951 RS wheat penny, even a common one worth only its face value, is a time capsule from an era when America was younger, when the nation was finding its footing as a global superpower, when the future seemed unlimited and full of promise. To hold a wrong planchet example worth $44 million is to hold not just money but a piece of that history, a tangible connection to the people who worked at the San Francisco Mint in 1951, to the systems and processes that occasionally failed in spectacular ways, to the human story of error and discovery that makes numismatics endlessly fascinating. The market for extreme rarities like the 1951 RS wrong planchet wheat penny continues to grow stronger with each passing year as more Wealthy collectors enter the hobby and compete for the same tiny pool of available specimens. The 1951 wheat penny on wrong planchet stands as the ultimate numismatic trophy, the coin that represents the absolute peak of what's possible in error coin collecting, and its story reminds us that sometimes the most valuable things in life are hiding right under our noses, waiting for someone with keen eyes and knowledge to recognize them for what they truly are, not just metal and history, but keys that can unlock dreams and transform ordinary lives into extraordinary success stories.